Well, today on Leadership Unscripted, man, we are so blessed to have another phenomenal leader. And when I say phenomenal leader, I say this guy is leading the way in the largest state and the amount of students that we have in the nation. We welcome a leader who oversees one of the largest and most, he will tell you, most complex education systems in the nation. Texas Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath. Since Commissioner Morath's appointment in 2016, he's been at the forefront, and you're going to hear these bold initiatives in accountability, student achievement, and innovation. They've championed literacy reform. They've launched Bluebonnet Learning. His leadership has really focused on preparing Texas students for both life and career success. We are honored. He has become a great friend. We've spent numerous times together. He is becoming a great friend of John. John loves him, and Mark, and everybody that meets him loves him because he is just so innovative. So Commissioner Morath, man, welcome to the show. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us.
You're very kind in your introduction. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, man. So let's talk about that a little bit, Commissioner. So you have one of the largest, most complex education systems. And we don't say complex like you guys can't lead through it, but with all of those, you have nothing in the teens. You have no numbers in the teens. We're talking about thousands and millions of numbers. How do you as a leader approach leading at this scale when every single decision you make doesn't impact just a couple of students, it's impacting millions of students?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that there's not a quick answer to it, but what I would say is a couple of things. One, you do have to, I think, start at your core with values. I believe that all students can learn and achieve at high levels. I don't believe that for just no reason. I actually have a lot of evidence that when we get our act right, that is actually true. But you have to have this lens of leadership or values has to work in everything that you do, like the ethics that you bring to the work, the sort of how you do the work matters. So I think that's first and foremost, but it's also, I think it really takes a bit of an engineering lens. There's one Texas education agency, there's 20 regional service centers, there's 1,200 independently governed school systems, there's one Texas legislature. And so being able to see all of the pieces of the puzzle, I will sometimes say that schools are machines, and either you can see how the machine works, all the little pieces, all the gears that go into it, and therefore you can change the design of that machine so it works better for students, or you don't realize that these parts exist and they control you, not the other way around. So you have to have this clear vision for how you want school to work, how you want the student experience to work, and then all the layers between an individual student, the 5.5 million individual students, and me for how to try to drive change. And then I would also say, you really kind of have a burning sense of patience because kids only get one shot at first grade. So you've got to move with urgency to support them. But it's a big system and everything takes forever. So you have to bring that, intellectual humility to the process.
Yeah. Being around you, I feel like you have the great combination of, you have an engineering mindset. You understand how to put everything together, but you're a great communicator of what you're thinking and motivating people to move. Because my guess is, as a leader, not only do you have to figure out how it all fits together, you have to motivate people in order for them to see that as well and move that direction.
At the scale of Texas, that's probably one of the more important things that you have to recognize. We do an employee orientation once a month. I sit down and have lunch with our new employees. And very commonly, they surface the degree of thoughtful planning that goes into every announcement is unprecedented. And in part, they're complaining about how long it takes to just get something out. But they also realize if you say something and it's slightly off kilter in a cafeteria that you're making an announcement in an individual school, you can kind of read the room very quickly. You can make an adjustment on it. If we say something from Austin, we're trying to impact 800,000 employees, you do have to be very intentional in how you communicate so that everybody can get on the same page on these really important things like the approach to literacy instruction.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Commissioner, and you know this, we do a lot of work with iLead across the globe. And in foreign countries, everything's top down, right? So if the government says, hey, we're going to do this, everybody does it. I know in your leadership, it's not that way, right? It's not that way in the United States. Everything's bottom up almost. And how do you motivate from that perspective? How do you lead from that perspective? Knowing you have these great ideas, you're an incredible innovator, but you've got to seep that down into the system in a bottom-up system, so to speak.
Yeah, it is very different than what in some of these sort of command and control countries around the world. We have 1,200 independently governed school systems. There are some common expectations. We expect every third grader to have memorized the times tables, for example, so plan and execute accordingly. But one of the things that we have adopted as a broad theory of action at the state level is we try to provide guidance on evidence-based practices, and we try to provide some clarity as to how to simplify execution. So I have the benefit of seeing across all the systems, even though I don't run any of the individual school systems. But because I can see those patterns, it's easier for us to identify certain step-by-step action steps that are happening in the highest performing systems. And then you spread the gospel, share that good word with as many of our school system leaders as possible so that they can then take the lesson that has been developed in one corner of the state and then apply that in their corner of the state to the benefit of their kids.
Man, that's amazing. That takes a great amount of leadership of communication, making sure it's clear, concise, and impactful at the same time. That's great.
Yeah, and again, as you mentioned, there's a lot of complexity. I think one of the central jobs I have is to try to simplify the complexity so that people can implement well for children. Yeah. And so it's constantly seeing all of these complex moving parts and then boiling it down to bite-sized pieces. That's, okay, this is an action plan for the next 3 months that I could do in my school.
That's great. I mentioned earlier, I think of you as just such an innovator. What are some other things that you're excited about in Texas, kind of that are innovative that you guys are trying to work through to be able to, whether it's in literacy or whatever it is that you're trying to move the needle on?
Yeah, well, we can spend a lot of time talking about curriculum and content, so I'll hold that for just a second. But at its core, what needs to be true is good content, good teaching, and more of it. Those are the three basics. And so what we have done in Texas, the legislature has done, what we try to support is for good teaching. We have, I think we're the only state in the country, we have this system called the teacher incentive allotment, so that for local school systems that choose to get very serious and fair about how they appraise the performance of their teachers. And what I mean by fair is two different administrators need to walk into your classroom and draw the same conclusion about performance. Or we don't just grade you on how well the kids passed the end of the year test if several of them started the school year two grade levels below. We want to look at how much they grew academically, even if they fall short of that milestone. So if a school district does that, then the legislature will provide somewhere between $3,000 and $36,000 of extra compensation per year per teacher to put teachers on a sort of a path so that their promotions are merit-based and they get to six-figure salaries. The legislature also just made a policy shift to invest about $500 million per year in training people who wish to become teachers. So they will be paid for a full year residency before they are legally responsible for molding eager young minds. Wow. So they can learn all of the best practices on managing a classroom and discipline and motivating kids, plus the content of math and science, whatever they have to teach. So the investments that we are making in teachers in Texas are pretty extraordinary to make sure that teaching is as effective as possible. So you think, again, good content, good teaching, and more of it. We are also, I think, the only state in the country that, as part of our school finance system, it's an entitlement. Like, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. If you, as a school district, want to extend the school year so that you have a really robust summer learning program, or you go to like a 7-6 weeks learning model over the course of a school year, then the legislature just gives you extra money. It's like automatically pays you for the extra 6 weeks of instruction, just like the rest of the school year. Now, it's, again, locally driven. We're a very local control state. So you have to want to do this. You don't have to do it at all your schools. You can do it just at some of your schools. But we've known since the 70s that, especially for low-income kids, in the summer, their learning falls off a cliff. They regress. And of course, every teacher has experienced this with the first 2 or 3 weeks of the school year. You got to kind of reteach a lot of stuff they forgot over the summer. So there's a lot of districts now that are moving in this direction of providing really robust summer learning opportunities because we have that. So again, good content, good teaching, more of it. This is the recipe for success for getting the highest level of achievement and preparation for pursuit of the American dream for our kids.
Man, that's so good. I love the three. Those are so good and simple, right? And they make sense. Like when you hear them, you're like, yeah, of course, everybody should want that. Every state district should want that. On the teacher incentive, Commissioner, talk a little bit about how you guys got to that point where you determined, hey, we need to do this for our teachers. I know teacher retention is always one of the forefront things for anybody in education. But talk about, and you don't have to go into great detail, the process of uncovering, hey, we need to do this, and this is what we need to do.
Yeah. So there had been localized experiments, innovations in how to compensate teachers for probably 30 years in the United States. Bonuses over Christmas, this, that, and the other. And a couple of school districts in the country, one of which was in Texas, Dallas ISD, pioneered an approach where basically since about the 1920s in the United States, the way we pay teachers is based on how old they are. You start with X when your first year, then you get a little bit of a pay raise every year. It doesn't matter what your performance is. It's a step and ladder seniority-based pay scale. That's the way it works almost everywhere. Well, Dallas threw that out. And what they said was, we're going to identify 9 performance levels of teachers. Entry-level novice, you get paid $60,000. The master teachers, you get paid $110,000. And if your performance grows from novice to progressing, you get a pay raise. And if your performance doesn't grow, you don't get a pay raise. And what that meant is that the money that was being allocated to pay raises every year became more efficiently allocated to the teachers whose performance was improving the most. And over 3 or 4 years, 2 things became true from that. A Stanford economist studied that Dallas innovation, and they found that teacher retention went way up. Because as it turns out, the vast majority of teachers prefer to have this way of getting pay raises, because everybody recognized, like, hey, I perform differently, and everybody wants to be the highest performer. And so they were finally seeing that their personal financial future was tied to their impact on kids. They felt valued for that, and they stayed in the classroom longer. So 1, really strong evidence that this improved teacher retention. 2, it closed the achievement gap by about 25% over the course of 4 years in Dallas, which is the whole reason we have schools in the first place, to make sure kids learn. And the amount of learning gain that occurred over that 4 years, just because pay raises were passed out differently, was the same amount of learning loss that occurred countrywide due to the COVID school closures. This is a very big positive impact on kids. And so the legislature said that and said, all right, we'll create an opt-in structure that is a stable funding flow people can count on, that relies on the evidence of what the most effective practices are. And it has started to spread. We're at about 800 school districts now that have opted into this in Texas. We see at scale about an 8% bump in teacher retention as a result of this. We see for kids that are below grade level, they're about 18% more likely to make grade level at the end of the year in a school district that makes this change in how they provide compensation to teachers. So everybody's winning. It's a great system.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Those numbers are staggering at how you guys are moving that needle.
And when it's a lot of these things, you see these like little boutique pilot projects that are happening in schools all over the country, and they show a lot of promise. But then when you start to scale them, the conditions that made them work in the pilot don't seem to scale. The teacher incentive allotment has actually only improved in its teacher retention benefits as it has scaled. It's one of the most interesting things that I have sort of studied, and one of the things I'm most excited to support, just because it's working, and it's working at large scale. So I don't know why every state in the country, their legislatures don't copy the lead of the Texas legislature and implement this in their own state.
You just said it. When in your leadership, in your department, you've got anything you come up with, you've got to think to scale. Right? It can't, when you have as much as you have, got to think to scale. And when you have something like this, that is something to get excited about, because you can see the impact it'll have long term. Let's talk about Bluebonnet. So Bluebonnet Learning, the cornerstone of what you guys are doing in Texas. I want to give you the open floor here to talk about your excitement of it, talk about the inception of it, talk about what you're seeing right now, how you're seeing it move forward in Texas. I know we're partnering with you guys in that as well, and are just really excited about this initiative.
Yeah. So again, think back to the 3 things that really need to be true: good content, good teaching, more of it. It really rests on a strong content foundation. What are kids learning in school? What are they reading? What kind of math problems are they doing? Is it what we just as parents would want our kids to read and learn and understand and grow? Is it helping them think critically, developing a broad understanding of the world? Also, is it from a cognitive science perspective, does it have a chance of working? Meaning, will the kids remember the lesson? All of us are very familiar with the in one ear, out the other phenomenon. And if that's all that ever happens with the content in school, why bother sending them to school in the first place?
Yep.
So what became very clear, and I think a lot of parents noticed, I mean, I'm not just Commissioner of Education, I'm a dad, and I could see this with my own kids. During COVID, a lot of us we developed visibility into what was being taught in the classroom. In some cases, for the first time, kids might stay at home for a week or two, and there's like distance learning lesson. We're listening over the shoulder, and wait a second, what is this lesson doing? And we had started a study before COVID of looking at the academic rigor and design of the content in classrooms, even before COVID hit. And what we found was that in the typical Texas elementary school, only 19% of student assignments that were given in reading were on grade level.
Wow.
And it's not because 81% were above grade level. The rest of the stuff was below grade level. And we did a lot of analysis as to what was causing this, but nobody was intentionally dumbing down writ large all of the content, but it was dumbed down writ large. Yeah. And so you can imagine, I'm a fourth grader. I've been working my tail off. I'm doing everything that the teacher assigned me. I'm a teacher. I've been working my tail off 60 plus hours a week. I'm not deliberately low grade rigor, but like every assignment that the kid got during fourth grade was actually at a second grade level. Then this even cascades at the end of the year. I have this grade level test that the state makes me take, and I fail that, even though I've been getting A's all school year long, and everybody's what gives. And people being people, we want to shoot the messenger. So you blame that test at the end of the year, as opposed to actually what has been happening is the content was not particularly rigorous. And so what we started to pilot at a small scale, and then the legislature rolled this out as a statewide initiative. We just got in the curriculum development business. We built lessons and sort of identified content for kids to engage in mathematics stuff that you want every third grader to memorize their times tables. That means they need to be practicing math facts over and over again, even on a timed basis. Yeah. They need to understand the relationship between numbers in the abstract world, and these are things, sort of the concepts of math, and it needs to be woven well together. In reading language arts, I want you to read real stuff. So in fifth grade, we built content, we call it Bluebonnet Learning, and kids will read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in fifth grade. They will read the whole novel, not like Cliff Notes version, not anything else. They will read Shakespeare in fifth grade. They read Midsummer Night's Dream, not Cliff Notes version, not watching some movie. They read and have to wrestle with the iambic pentameter and the vocabulary. We actually, in fifth grade, there's a unit that they read on Juneteenth and the arc of American history that stemmed from the announcement in Galveston. And so we actually have kids read the Emancipation Proclamation. They will read an excerpted version of Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, and they'll wrestle with the ethics of these ideas that were part of our country's heritage. When King compares what he did in Birmingham with what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did under Nebuchadnezzar. So kids have to understand these sort of intellectual ideas. They like just pronounce Nebuchadnezzar. Like what? And you thinking there's nursery rhymes and fairy tales and kindergarten, first grade, second grade. It's been written so that they practice their handwriting in print and in cursive. Learning cursive is both legally required in Texas, and actually there's a lot of evidence it's really beneficial for dyslexia and a bunch of other things. And not to mention, it'd be nice if you could read the actual Declaration of Independence as it was written, because it wasn't written in print. So these are how the lessons have been built. We piloted them over a number of years, and when you have good content and, of course, good teaching, so you have to train the teachers on this content. They have to then deliver it with fidelity. We see double-digit gains in student learning, like the percentage of kids who are performing at grade level as a result of this. Once you sort of upgrade the content rigor, it's amazing how well the kids perform. Again, when this starts back to the sort of values conversation, we have to start with this belief that all kids can learn and achieve at high levels, that it is our responsibility to get them to that level of performance. And if we hold ourselves accountable to this high level of performance, but also provide supports. We don't want teachers to do this on their own. The job is too hard. We need to legitimately support them and give them well-crafted lesson materials so that they can reach this level of performance with their kids. Then improvement happens. It's really remarkable.
Don't you? I just love it, man. I love everything about it. And I've been fortunate. You've let us peek a little bit behind the scenes of some of this. It's just remarkable. Don't you think, Commissioner, what you're saying is if you give students a challenge, right? If you challenge them to go higher, they will get there. They will go there. And then if the teacher is on board, now they have a guide on the side, so to speak, that's helping guide them. You don't even have to push them. You're guiding them to that up level experience and that up level learning.
Yeah, I did a school visit where they were using our materials. There's a second grade unit on ancient Greek civilization and a second grade unit on Greek mythology that the kids go through. And this school was very low income in a very distressed part of the state, a lot of broken families. Most people need some form of government assistance to eat on a regular basis. A very stressed community. And the teacher had finished a good chunk of the unit and had the kids sit down and say, okay, I want you to talk to your partner about the difference between Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. And so I'm sitting there, I'm sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor next to the kids, and they're talking about it. Socrates was the one, he was the one that was like blind, right? And yeah, that's right. And so you're listening to them go through this. And then the teacher said, okay, I'm going to ask a question. I want you all to think about this, and I'm going to call on one of you to answer. What was the form of government that was pioneered by the ancient Greeks? And so then a bunch of kids are listening, and a bunch of hands come up, and he said, Jaime, come to the room, top front of the room, and said, what was it? And he said, democracy. That's right. And then, can you tell me what is democracy? And he thinks for a second. Democracy is when you get to vote on your leaders. Excellent. Sit back down. And so I'm like tearing up in this school that so many people would just write off. It's a low-income community. They can't learn and achieve. And it's being born on a bed of money does not make you literate. That's not what it is. It is good instruction in phonics. It is good in reading interesting things, developing background knowledge of the world. This is what makes you literate. And so it's so exciting to see.
Man, I just love it. And I love your passion for it. I love the fact that, first of all, I love the fact you're in the classroom, right? In that classroom, listening to that. I can imagine, because I've seen you get excited about it even here, but in other environments, the tears in your eyes and just the smile on your face as you saw that. Now, let me ask you, since you were on the floor, did they study Hercules so they could help get you up off the floor once you were?
Actually, they were moving because they were starting that unit on Greek mythology. So they were talking about Zeus and Poseidon and Hercules and good stuff. They studied the Battle of Thermopylae. Think about the 300 Spartans.
I don't even know that.
Graders.
Yeah, I don't even know that.
That's one of the lessons that they're reading about. And the kids get excited about it. One of the things that the teachers would talk about is like, we're actually at recess. We can hear them like breaking into teams where they pick like, hey, you're one of the Trojans and you're one of Sparta, you're one of the Spartans and you're the Athenians. And you can hear the kids like using this stuff. And this is, we sell our kids short. And this is such a problem. But it's not enough just to have high expectations. You got to be thoughtful about the resources to make the system work. One teacher alone, this is a big job. You got to be able to give them the resources that they can be successful in a school holistically.
Man, that's so good. Let's talk just real briefly about one of the resources that we've partnered with. You guys are using iLead, one of the first states really to go all in. And again, you've gotten innovative around how you're using that and how you're using that going forward. Talk a little bit about the reason that you see values. You've mentioned it a couple of times, a values-based resource, right? That helps kids wrestle with values, implement values, and become leaders off those values. Why that's important for our nation, and specifically what you're seeing in Texas as a result.
Yeah, I can't remember who said this quote, but it goes something like this. To educate a student in mind and not morality is to make a menace to society.
Wow.
This is a constitutional republic. And you go back to the writings of Madison, you go back to the writings of a lesser known founding father, Noah Webster, who was one of the sort of fathers of the American version of the English language, and also wrote extensively about the need to make our citizenry educated. In a republic, we have to have people that are knowledgeable and virtuous in order for the government that we then own, right? We're the citizens. This is a reflection of us. If the citizenry lack virtues, then the government lacks virtues. And so this is well understood by I think parents, like I as a dad, I got 4 kids. I don't just send them to school to learn how to read, write, and do math. I do send them to school to learn how to read, write, and do math. I expect the school to teach them how to read, write, and do math. But I want my kids to treat each other with respect and kindness, trying to get the twins, the brother to stop hitting the sister, like to live with some forgiveness and recognize that we're flawed individuals, to know that you got to work hard and you got to be able to look a man in the eye and shake his hand and keep your word. You will periodically have to sacrifice today for a stronger tomorrow. These are like, teachers teach these concepts also when they're reinforcing. Like you walk into kindergarten classrooms all over the place, and they got the kindergarten rule book, and then you can walk in everywhere else and say, everything I needed to learn in life, I learned in kindergarten. If you did, in fact, learn it in kindergarten. So in Texas, there's a bunch of legitimately good reasons why values matter. And I think most Americans will just recognize, this is important. This is also what happens in school. In Texas, it's also part of the law. So we have curriculum standards in math, where, again, you're supposed to have memorized your times tables, but we also have the State Board of Education has adopted what are called positive character traits, and this is hard work and self-sacrifice. And so this is actually a formal responsibility of our schools too. So when I first got exposed to iLead, I saw it as rigorous content to support the development of values in a structured way for our students. And so we have rolled it out on a pilot basis initially, and then have a strategy for scale, because I think everything that we try to do, we try to think about scale to try to give it as a resource for our schools. Again, an optional opt-in resource for our schools and our teachers. But everywhere this thing has gone from a pilot perspective, it's like a renaissance of positive effects. Student behavior and attendance improves. The teachers actually see it as a rejuvenating force for their instruction, because most teachers signed up not just to teach math, but also to reinforce and nurture the young kids that they come to love over the course of their school year. So it's been a very positive tool in the toolbox, and we're hoping to scale it at a larger and larger basis over the coming years.
Yeah, and you guys have been great with that. And your team, DeWitt, and then letting us steal Christine, which basically we did to our team. You let her come over here.
The line that I use with my own team is all is fair in love and recruiting. So love and
recruiting. Yeah. Did you get your finder's fee on that yet? I don't know. You get that check. It's in the mail.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys have been great. Just rapid fire questions for you. Okay. The first one is, if you could spend an hour with any leader, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I think I'd start with Lincoln, and I try to be a student of Lincoln most of my life, but the team of rivals approach that he built, the way that he inspired and motivated the entire country, but through his cabinet and his leadership, I think he would be on my short list for sure.
That's great. Okay, next question. This is going to be harder for you, because I don't know if you spend any time not thinking about work or education, or because I know how hard you work, but I know you love your family. You spend a lot of time with your family. When you're not when it's just you, all right, you've got a day. It's just Mike Morath. He's got one day. What would we find you doing that you really love to do on your downtime?
Just for clarity, on this day, I'm also not with my children, because that's pretty much what I do 100% of the time when I'm not at work.
So we'll say God has given you favor in this moment, and he's given you time to just yourself. What is it you love to do?
I would say probably you got better than average chances to see me do one of 3 things. I would either be exercising, I would be reading a book, often a history book, or I would be listening to some super nerdy podcast. That's probably what you would find me doing.
That's great. Hey, any last thing, just a few words to some aspiring superintendents out there, leaders in education, who are saying, man, I'm trying to be innovative. I'm trying to get some things going. Maybe it's not going as quick as I want. I know you said patience is a key virtue for you guys. Give them some encouragement from you leading the largest area in the States.
Just in terms of words of encouragement, there's an old, I want to say it's like an old Greek proverb, and it goes something like this. Wise is he who plants a seed for a tree whose shade he will never see. You think about the implications of that, and what I think we are called to do while we have breath on this earth. And besides preaching, teaching, education is the single most important thing that we do as a people, that we pour our wisdom and expertise and love into the next generation. And like classroom teachers do it 20 at a time. Parents do it, of course, they're with their kids. School principals can do it 1,000 at a time. School superintendents can do it several thousand at a time. This is the most important work that the government funds in our nation. And it is not easy. The human mind we know a lot about, but in many ways it is still a mystery of creation. And you have to approach this with a relentless focus of learning yourself, but also humility, and that there will still be things that we will err in and fail on. But we have to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and try again. Kids only get one shot at first grade, and it is we, the adults, that they have available to them. So we've got to be the best versions of ourselves.
Man, that's a mic drop moment right there. Thank you for that, buddy. Hey, audience, you got blessed today. Again, this is Commissioner Mike Morath, innovator. He is a leader who John would say sees more and before. And what you heard here, I hope you took notes. I hope you feel encouraged. What Texas is doing, every state can do. He said it. And it's just thinking bigger, better, and brighter for our students and our teachers. And we so appreciate you, Commissioner, and we appreciate you being with us. We appreciate you taking the time in your schedule to join us. And man, we love you guys. We love Texas. And we appreciate you greatly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.